Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Browne here with you on this Saturday morning live again from Biddy and Bo's Coffee downtown Auburn, next to Auburn Bank. And Guy May and his wife Beverly are the owners of this great place. Come in here and get coffee. They've got food. They also got great T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. You will love it. Got the best staff that you'll find anywhere. These people actually want to get to work every day. Love the attitude of the people in here. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours. A lot to talk about. It's the first big weekend of the college football season, and we're going to be talking with Frank Duffy up in the mountains in Orlando, and not the mountains of North Orlando, the mountains in Orlando, Florida, for the LSU Florida State game. Doug Dean, live from Lake Martin, right now is going to be talking with us. Dave Tompkins is going to be checking in just a moment, and look forward to hearing from him. Before we get, though, to the college football news I got this morning, and Frank, I think you share me. Jimmy Buffett gone, rest in peace, man. He's just one of the iconic musicians, singer-songwriters in the history of music, and can't believe it. He was only 76 years old. I never, can't imagine that, but I think there'll be a lot of Margaritavilles and a lot of so many great songs. I don't even know where you start, but his music is associated with a great time. And looks like you got palm trees in the background where you are.
You're not going to believe this, but I'm actually at Camp Margaritaville, one of Jimmy's properties in Auburndale, Florida, right outside of Lakeland, where I did the broadcasting for the Detroit Tigers. In fact, this property was actually one of my sponsors. It was my third inning that I would always say, brought to you by Camp Margaritaville. And so when Rhonda and I came down here to the LSU Florida State game, we wanted to come down a couple days early. In fact, we were supposed to be here a couple days before, obviously with the storm. We didn't come down, but we drove down yesterday. So I literally woke up to the news of Jimmy's passing, sadly, in one of his properties. Our RV right there, Bengal One, is parked here at Camp Margaritaville, one of the RV resorts. And, Rob, it's kind of surreal. When I always come down to Florida, we come down a lot. And when I'm in the RV, I have Sirius, and I always will put on Radio Margaritaville. In fact, I was one of the fruitcakes on the radio, one of the guest DJs of about
Channel 24.
And I always love listening to it. You're exactly, Dave. I always love listening to it on my way down, and I listened the whole way down yesterday in the bad rains, and it was like bad traffic. People were coming back after leaving for the storm. So literally for 11 hours, I listened to Jimmy's music all day. And, the last, year, he's obviously been in bad health. And so I have my mind has wandered to the thought of, what is his empire? What is his legacy? What is his music going to be like when the captain's gone? And those thoughts actually came through my mind a couple of times yesterday. And of course, a good song, Son of a Sailor, or A Pirate Looks at 40 came on, and my mind, got back on more mundane things. But when we pulled in last night, when you get here, the branding is all over, and you stop to think of what an effect this artist had on our lives. Those of us that were in college in the early 80s and grew up in the 70s listening to his music, I mean, there's not a crawfish boil that I've ever been to anywhere near LSU that didn't have Jimmy Buffett music playing in the background. And, I ran, several bars at LSU. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we had Jimmy on the speakers, blaring, and just that cool, bohemian vibe. And, hey, look, he'll always be on starboard bow looking back at us, like he said in one of his songs. And like I said in one of my texts this morning, I said, I hope he's hanging on like the Jolly Man and hanging on for that ride as he goes up into the stars. So it is kind of a surreal day. In fact, I'm not kidding, about a half hour ago, I walked over and actually asked the management here if I could pull down the American flag to half staff. And they actually gave me the ability to do that. So they're honoring him here at Camp Margaritaville here in Auburndale.
Well, look, Dave, I think he's a part of all of our lives. Sure. I mean, iconic part of it. Like when my kids talk about Vern Lundquist, Wilson will say, you, Grand Bob, my dad, Max, and me, every Saturday. If we weren't in Auburn or at an Auburn road game watching that, and then Jimmy Buffett, you can't go to the beach, Dave, and you can't go to the low country of South Carolina without listening to the Drifters. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Well, something about the timing. Frank said surreal. I mean, we all wanted Jimmy Buffett to live forever, and he will live forever in our hearts and minds and souls.
Right.
But that it happens on opening day of college football. I mean, there's this symbiotic relationship between college football in the South and Jimmy Buffett. Yeah. I mean, it's what we listen to before the games start. It's what we listen to at halftime. It's just it's a sad day. It's a bittersweet day, and it's also it's a wonderful day because the games must go on. And we don't have any truly compelling games today, but I think we're going to learn a lot about players today, but maybe not about teams.
Yeah, it's right. John Hartwell, AD at ULM, joins us. We got Hollywood Squares going today. Doug Dean be with us in just a minute. I love this. Give me about 15. West Point. Hey, tell me.
Hey, that's your compelling game, Dave.
That's it. That's probably the best game today.
I love it. But the governor of Louisiana is coming to the game, John. And Doug Dean will be on with us in just a minute. He had to move his boat up to Lake Martin. He said he'd be on about 8:15. But, John, where's the governor sitting?
Yeah, he's obviously the governor of our great state of Louisiana, but he is a West Point grad. So
class of 88.
He is going to sit, on the visitor side today. So, but ought to be a great day. Hey, it's going to be, a cool front's come through Monroe. It's only going to be about 92 degrees today.
Well, Terry Bowden is 1-1 against Army. He beat Army when he was Auburn's coach in the Independence Bowl.
That was 32-29, and it
we
took a full 60
at the very end.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it took a full 60 to get that one. Guys, we're at Biddy and Bo's Coffee here in downtown Auburn, and I'm telling you, just the buzz, the traffic this morning, got up early. It's not bad, but, 2:30 kickoff here. You picked the spot. Sunbelt, SEC, all over the country, it's breaking out. I think, guys.
Christmas morning.
Yeah, it's Christmas morning. You're 9 years old, and you just walk downstairs, and that Schwinn Sierra 10-speed that you wanted is there. I mean, I'll just, my sinuses are just, my voice, I'm losing my voice. So I want John started up and go to Dave and then to Frank, how big opening weekend is, despite the narrative that football is ruined and NIL and the portal are ruining it. It's still the greatest game in the history of the greatest games and sports.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I've told people over the course of the past couple of weeks, hey, this is the greatest time of the year to be a fan, to be an athletic director, to be anybody, because hope springs eternal. Other than a handful of folks who were on the wrong end of the score in week 0, everybody's undefeated. Everybody, you've got that optimism, you've got that hope. And folks are excited about it. And, you make a great point. Obviously, yesterday, with the news of the additions to the Atlantic Coast Conference, is there some upheaval in college football and college athletics? Yes. But regardless of who's in what conference, what does not change is people coming together for a common goal, which is WIN, for their institution, regardless of their socioeconomic background, their political background, all of those things. And that's what the power of college athletics and obviously they're, a lot of sports, but football is the engine that drives the train in terms of revenue, in terms of media exposure, everything else. So, it's a wonderful time of year, and we're excited to kick it off.
It's the name on the front of the jersey, like you said before, John. That's what we're here for. That's the passion that we have.
Well, it's the love of the laundry, and tradition never graduates. And when you're at that game, all the people that have come before you, it's like a priest said one time at Mass at St. Louis. He said, you're in communion with all those who have come before you, who are here now, and the ones that are going to heaven one day. I mean, that's the tradition and the connection that we have. That, Dave, from being a West Point guy, that's pretty cool. The governor of Louisiana is a West Point graduate, class of '88. I don't know if you knew him because you were out, but he may have been in your platoon. I don't know. Hope you got along with him.
No, I know of him. I work with a guy who's also class of '88, who's a friend of his, and he's actually at the game today as well. His daughter's at LSU. And Army's playing 2 games this year in the state of Louisiana. We'll Louisiana Monroe today, and then LSU a little bit later. My better half, Kimberly, is from Boone, North Carolina, and Appalachian State is there. And every bar, every restaurant, every office, there's that iconic photo of the big house when Appalachian State beat them. 15 years ago,
2007.
And, I think today, who knows? One of those might be in store, and that's probably what I'm most watching today up until 6 o'clock Louisiana time, when I'll be watching on the NFL Network the big game of the day.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, I'd be remiss if I didn't throw a little banter in there, Dave. I just got to ask you this question, Dave. Is the reason you accepted the appointment to West Point is you didn't get into the Citadel? Is that right?
I did a little Google, and I understand the context of that question, sir.
That's what I love about Dave Tompkins and Doug Dean. We all know each other because, John is from Mobile, Dave, and went to Citadel and played basketball there. That's when I first met him, August 31st, through mutual friends in Birmingham. I was talking to him, and Doug Dean, this. If you can survive the Citadel and then graduate and get that ring, that's for life. Doug, Captain.
You step on that checkerboard. You stand on that checkerboard. It changes.
Yeah.
The most famous citizen of my town, Beaufort, South Carolina, also played basketball at the Citadel.
There you go. Doug Dean, Doug Dean, I think you're the boat captain today. Lake Martin, a lot of orange and blue, crimson and white out there on the lake.
Yeah, what the joke that the great John, man, I feel very unworthy on this show. Compton, Hartwell, I can probably hang in there with Duff, but I think should not have made that. But that you will hear Alabama and Auburn, depending on your allegiance, use that same punchline, John Hartwell. Oh, you couldn't get in Auburn. You had to go to Alabama.
Yeah.
But speaking of the 2 upcoming ACC teams, when I was getting my master's degree at Stanford, Cal, of course, is our big rival, and my first year there, the game was at Berkeley, and so we all wore buttons that said "We got in."
Well, I mean,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll tell y'all what I love the most is that are you hearing anything about NIL or the portal? It's game day. People are coming into town. They're occupying their tailgate spots. They're going to their favorite restaurants, and they're seeing their friends. At the end of the day, all that other stuff is just noise. When you get to game day, it's about the game. And I think that's what's so much fun is we love the game. We celebrate the game. So y'all have at it. I'm going to be Jonathan Winters.
It's what makes you drive toward a hurricane instead of away from one.
I appreciated the many good things that Rhett Lashley did when he was offensive coordinator with Gus. I think Gus was calling the plays, but Rhett contributed. And I always thought Rhett the time would come where he would be head coach at a Power 5. I didn't think it would happen this way with SMU vaulting up into the heights.
John Hartwell, how shocked were you to see, like Doug says, Stanford and Cal, and then SMU? I think SMU is going to go 5 years without getting money. that's a hell of a weight.
Yeah, well, you asked the term surprised. I think anything that happens now, if you're surprised by anything, it's probably being naive. But I think it's 9 years that SMU is going to go without.
Yes, that's right.
And you think about the total dollar value of that between their exit fee from the American Athletic Conference to not receiving any revenues from multimedia rights or bowl games for 9 years. You talk about an investment, but again, there's only a handful of schools out there, and people say, well, gosh, how can SMU do that?
They got rich
Look at the endowment numbers at SMU. I mean,
yeah.
And there are some very savvy and well-to-do financial folks associated.
They still got Trans Am money. They still got Trans Am money.
Yeah,
that's right. So,
but John Hartwell, and guys, you think about it. I'm an English major, so I deal in metaphors. They don't always work. Let's see if this one works. If you're trying to get off the Titanic, and the only thing available down there that's floating is a little inflated raft, it's an ugly ride. It's not an expensive ride, but it's your own. Yeah, so I look at it, SMU's at least smart enough, unlike the Pac-4, formerly Pac-12, smart enough to say, we better get in a brand, a conference. We'll figure the money out later because they got enough rich guys that they can float it for a while.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think the next big step is going to be, I mean, obviously, as you say, the Pac-12 is now the Pac-2. You've got Oregon State and Washington State. And, the next couple of meetings of the CFP group are going to be really interesting to see how, the 6-and-6 structure that was put in place for 2 years out now, does that stay? Does it become the Power 4? Obviously, from my vantage point, we want to make sure that we protect at least one, hopefully more than that, spots for the group of 5. But it's going to be interesting. Also,
John, hold that thought. Yeah. We're gonna take a quick break. One of our new sponsors coming on board here. We're gonna be right back because I want you to pick up with that because I love the 12-team playoff concept. We'll get into it right after this roundtable Saturday Sidelines.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Rob Browne back here with you on this Hollywood Squares. Let's bring Dave Tompkins in right now. John, you were making some great points. I like that term, waxing poetically, or poetic, but about, when we had Mr. Bill Hancock on the show back at Media Days in the middle of July, Will Gunner from Columbia, South Carolina, and I had him on there. And he said something, and Will thought, is this breaking news? It's the 6th highest ranked conference champions. And then is that 6 at large after that? How's it going to work? Because in November, it's going to make the top 25 teams all think, hey, there's a chance we make the playoff. I think that's great for interest.
Yeah, I think that's up for discussion here over the next few months as now the Power 5 has gone to the Power 4. And, how does that impact those of us at the group of 5 level? Do you see the group of 5 potentially go to 4? I don't see that in the short term on the horizon. But again, I would say if you're surprised by anything that's going on, that you've got your head buried in the sand. And there is movement. I mean, we had a Sun Belt Conference presidents and ADs call last week, and there are people. Fortunately, I'm in a league that's got stability in it right now from the Group of 5 level, and there are people that want to hit. There are people that want to hitch their wagon to the Sun Belt. So, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. And the other thing, in my previous league, the Mountain West, what happens with the Mountain West, and do Washington State and Oregon State? I mean, really, that's their only option right now, unless something comes out of left field. And, that's a significant change in revenues. When you look at what Oregon State has done, they invested $150 million into a stadium renovation. And then all of a sudden, about $40 million a year of a revenue stream that you thought was going to be there is going to go by the wayside. That's a real challenge. Now, they are going to get, a big check from the people exiting the Pac-12, but long term, that's going to be hard to sustain.
Doug Dean, you heard
Horace Greeley. I was going to say Horace Greeley needs to be rephrased. It's go east, young man, not west. They're all coming east.
Yeah,
they're all coming east.
Doug Dean, you heard what John just said. Group Power 5 is now Power 4. So, you know what? One man's tragedy is another man's opportunity, is how I see this. I think it's an opportunity if those other schools are willing to do. You got to be disciplined to do the things that you don't like to do. That's the way life is. I see great opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm maybe counterintuitive here, but because I'm kind of a contrarian investor, like I think you are, Rob, depending on markets. But I'm bullish on the power, the group of 4, if you want to call them that, because think of it. I mean, ESPN and all that. There's 24/7 coverage, and we're going to start seeing football games on Wednesday nights, and all kinds of weird times. But so there's going to still be a demand from the point of view of TV to give us games. And there's fan bases, there's kids that people follow in high school that aren't quite ready to make an SEC or Big Ten type of program as a rising senior in high school. And of course, the big leagues will continue to pick off those guys when they blow up and are performing when they go to a Sun Belt or some school. And that's kind of, you can lament that if you want, but do we lament success in body for a bigger company? Of course we don't. So I think they marketed. They have to pour the kind of money we're talking about into having a quality product and drawing fans. They won't necessarily have to rally donors to fund NIL anywhere near like the SEC right now. So that presents an opportunity for pure football for the joy of football, as opposed to the semi-pro football that we're going to have to learn to like in the new world that we're in.
I couldn't have said it. Nobody could say it better. That you nailed it. Yeah.
I think particularly in the Big Ten and the ACC, or whatever the ACC is going to be, the all whatever coast conference,
the all continent.
Scheduling and the drama around that, because like which teams have to go out west in the Big Ten to play USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, and then who do those schools play when they go east? And ditto, less dramatic, but still ditto for Stanford and Cal when they, who has to go out and play them, and then who do they play when they go east? That's going to, I think, create some drama around scheduling and and determination of the conference champion, and all that's to be seen. But it's going to be interesting if nothing else.
Truly, the big winners are Delta and United. They're the big winners. and sadly, for the baseball teams and the volleyball teams, it's really going to be Trailways and Greyhound buses, because the cost to get these secondary teams across country, we're all thinking of this through a football prism. I mean, John, I'm sure could tell you what are the costs going to be to send out these teams. I mean, you're almost going to have to kind of meet in the middle. It's almost going to be maybe even like mini tournaments because the cost of doing this is going to be extraordinary for these smaller sports.
They're going to have neutral sites, Duff.
They're going to have to. They'll have to.
Omaha, Kansas City. I mean, that's St. Louis.
Kind of like they did the basketball, the big dance during COVID.
Yeah, and I think, what a lot of people don't think about are the ancillary costs to this. And yes, there's going to be a whole lot more revenue, but there's going to be a whole lot more cost, as you guys talked about, planes, trains, and automobiles. But just think about the missed class time. And I know the student part of student athlete often gets lost in these conversations, which is a sad deal because, again, 99.4% of anybody who plays any collegiate sport is never going to play, a single minute in the NBA or a down in the NFL. But what you're going to have to see is you're going to see additional costs for academic support, because in some cases here, you're going to have teams that are going cross country and may stay there for 6 to 8 days just to take care of their schedule obligations and to do it in the most efficient manner. I'll give you an example, and I should know right off the top of my head. One of you guys who follow every college football schedule will know this, but Georgia Southern plays somebody on the West Coast today. I think they go to the West Coast, and then they play like Oklahoma or Kansas next week. They are actually they're going to the West Coast, and then they are going to fly back to Oklahoma somewhere, I think, and spend next week. And they're taking like 2 or 3, academic folks, make sure they have study halls, just from an economy standpoint of not having to fly back and forth cross country, twice in a 6-day period.
And John, add to
good luck on those first exams. Good luck.
Add to that, people are talking about this, but I'm interested to see the implications of it. I just don't believe that even 20% of college football fans, even the most rabid fans, will pony up, even if they've got the money. The sheer exhaustion of flying cross country more than once at most, I would think, during a season. What will happen with visitors in the stadiums? I think there's a big decline sometimes.
Yeah, I think attendance could potentially be a challenge some places, especially in the smaller markets where you don't have, 7 million people living in a 20, 30 mile radius of your campus. But I know all of those numbers have been crunched, and obviously what's available from a media perspective, from a revenue standpoint, outweighs in all likelihood what you're going to sell in tickets to a visiting team. But the visiting teams, and again, the newness of it, I think over the first 3, 4, 5 years, the opportunity for the Cal fan, well, I shouldn't say Cal because I don't think they draw very well in the first place. But let's say the Stanford folks to go to Chapel Hill to play, or to Death Valley, places like that. I think you're going to see people doing it because they haven't been there on a regular basis.
Yep.
You misspoke, John. That's called Clemson. That's Clemson. That's Alex.
Clemson.
I was just trying to make sure Frank was still awake there.
Yeah, make sure my volume was still on.
I'm intrigued by this is sort of futuristic. But if you, for example, if you consider the case of Florida State, if you're not 20 years old, if you're closer to my age, and a couple of you on the show, you're old enough to remember that Florida State really didn't play football much. Not too power. And so I've been intrigued by all of this realignment, and I'd love to welcome each of you weighing in on this. Going forward, strategically, which program or 2 or 3 might be positioned, and I'm talking about programs that aren't thought of as football powers. They love to play football and they've had their moments, but which ones over the next 5 to 10 years have the financial and strategic position to really take the next step and start contending big? I would put forth, not because of Gus Malzahn, but because of geography and size of enrollment, donor base. UCF is in a pretty sporty position joining the Big 12, and you might add SMU to that if they make some good moves because they've got the cash to really play the NIL game. Do y'all see anybody else in this landscape that's not already a blue blood power have an opportunity to rise up going forward?
Dave, go first.
Great question.
Yeah.
And UCF immediately comes to mind. I mean, it's any school with a large enrollment in a nice place like Orlando, with some coin. I'm probably the game I'm most interested in watching before tonight's game is Colorado TCU, and to see how real is this Coach Prime thing, and can Colorado go from an afterthought in terms of football to the highest priced ticket in town. I think that's going to be a kind of a leading indicator. Doug, to your question, can some out of nowheres emerge in this new environment?
Colorado's a good call.
I think it's a good one. What about, John, you mentioned some big cities. Georgia State, John, you got experience with them in Atlanta. Kennesaw State, God bless, about North Atlanta. They got over 60,000 students. And then, John, I'm just curious, living in Memphis, Dr. Hargrave's going to be on the show, the president. He'll be on the show with us Tuesday morning. He's fighting like hell to try to get Memphis somewhere. But I think Memphis, they didn't think that the people said, the Grizzlies will never work, and you can't get a ticket to a Grizzlies game. John Morant just needs to stay out of trouble, but they've got something special going there. So you look at a Memphis, Cincinnati was a graveyard not that long ago. John, look at ULM where you are. What is your biggest challenge that you face trying to build 17 sports into championship caliber programs?
Yeah, that's simple. WIN. I mean, winning solves every. I say that kind of flippantly, but it is. But here's part of the thing. I think sustaining. It's easy. It's easier to be a one-hit wonder. Having sustained success over a period of time is a much more difficult task, and it doesn't happen overnight. And one of the things. I know we got pretty far into the show before we talked about this, but as it relates to the transfer portal, you can plug deficiencies pretty quickly in today's world in the transfer portal. But can you plug them enough to where you can get your solid base of more traditional recruiting? Freshmen, developing them in the program and having sustained success. And, part of that deals with dollars and cents, absolutely. But part of it deals with hiring the right coaches too. And I think that's really important. And not only hiring coaches who can identify and develop talent, but chemistry is so important in today's world too. The most consistent winners, and I know, I got Frank going there talking about the other Death Valley in Clemson. I'm going to talk about the guy across the state in Alabama there. Say what you want to about Coach Saban. The chemistry and the climate that he's developed in that program, that consistency is part of their success. Yeah, it helps having, 5 stars, 3 deep at every position, but you've got to build the chemistry. And I think that's really, really important.
And just the whole ecosystem he's built, and look at Georgia now, and all the coaches that have come from assistance from Coach Saban. He's built an ecosystem that extends beyond the SEC, and so that's the right way to do it. And then we have with Coach Prime and Colorado, perhaps the new way to do it. And it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out. He's always fascinated me as a when he was at Florida State and a dual sport professional. So I'm very intrigued about that.
Hey, Dave Compton, can I put a quote, since you're our Bama guru on the show? I want to put a comment to Dave and let him riff on it. if you don't mind talking actual football, Rob Brown. But to me, one of the fascinating storylines, I believe I've got the source right, that SEC podcast, the host of that wrote and titled his article "The Decaying Dynasty," referring of all things to the mighty Crimson Tide. And, eventually all good things got to come to an end. It's the same with the Wildwood Flower. But Alabama just signed the #1 class, I think the highest rated class, right after, on the heels of Texas A&M doing the same thing a year ago. Dave Compton, tell us about the absurdity of someone taking that position that is just all over for Coach Saban.
I think it's absurd. I remember as a kid in Coach Bryant's last year, we beat Penn State midway through the season and we're undefeated. Walter Lewis was our quarterback, and we were supposedly going to be the best team in the nation. And then we just went on a long losing streak and then barely beat Illinois in the Liberty Bowl in Memphis for Coach Bryant's last game. And as he predicted, he said, I would, I stopped coaching, I would croak in 3 weeks. It took him about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I think Coach Saban's got a lot of fuel left in the tank.
Hold that, Dave, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. It's tight break Saturday. Come back. I want to, because you're nailing. He died 4 weeks, January 26th of 83. Be right back with the roundtable.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Back here with you. And the son of a sailor, Doug Dean, out on Lake Martin. John Hartwell in Monroe, Louisiana. Frank Duffy, Orlando, Florida. Dave Tompkins. Low Country Stew will be on the menu today for lunch down in Bluffton, South Carolina. But I think you were making some great points, Dave, about Alabama. I remember in 2015, after Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss beat Alabama 2 years in a row, the end of the dynasty. I mean, come on. And people love to say stuff like that. It ain't happening. You lose 2 games, and those are epic losses. That's the real story, Dave.
Yeah, last year we lost on the last play of those games, and against Tennessee with all the penalties, we completely shot ourselves in the foot. So never lost that game. If we had just lost to LSU, we make the playoffs, and who knows what happens then. They had those 2 years with losing to Hugh Freeze. I'm the optimistic Alabama fan. I think the return to a dominant defense, chew up the clock running game manager as a quarterback, which I think might be where we're headed back. I like it. I think Coach Saban is more comfortable coaching that kind of football team. It remains to be seen. Obviously, we have a huge test next Saturday in Tuscaloosa, and that'll show us a lot. But I think it's hard, if not impossible, to think that his time is done and the dynasty is fading. I don't think it'll be as dominant as it was 7 or 8 years ago because of the ecosystem that he built. And who can't argue that Georgia's the program right now, and there will be more teams from the SEC that will emerge, and LSU, and so he's just raised the bar, but he's still at the top, in my opinion.
Frank Duffy,
as an LSU fan, the only thing that's going to stop Saban is Van Helsing. That's the only person that's going to be able to stop Saban. Until he's retired and that new property that he and Miss Terry just bought, I'm not believing any of that stuff. He is the gold standard. He is the GOAT. It pains me to say it because, in my opinion, all 6 of those national championships that Alabama has would have been LSU national championships. I'm bitter about it, and I'm not going to stop. And that is the greatness of Nick Saban. He will go out on his terms when he's ready to go out. And if you think he's done, you're going to be looking up at a 45 burger and an L the second you think he's done. And all the recruits in your state are going to be wearing crimson.
The only thing I'd say, continuing the football strategic, again, we're sort of talking about balance of power in the SEC. I am going to watch with fascination this year. If it's true that Saban intends, and I think he will, because if you look at they're not bringing a Bryce Young in to operate. Milroe or one of them may start looking like that after a few games. But if Saban is in fact going to go back to what he first won big with, which is ground and pound, protect your defense. I don't like the term shorten the game because, college football rule makers are already doing that. By last weekend, I think it was about 8 or 9 plays on average shorter because of the new rules about first and bounds, except for the last 2 minutes of each half. But I want to see if you got Heupel that's still, I assume, going to want to be high octane, air it out, a lot of vertical shots. And if Saban is the yin and that's the yang, which strategic style carries the day? Can you still play serious defense and mostly run the football and keep your defense fresh and late in the game? Or will you find yourself down by 17 and you have to abandon the run? That's, to me, going to be fascinating this season.
Well, I think you can, Doug, because Saban has shown us he's adaptable. The same reason Saban switched to the passing attack when he got all those great quarterbacks in the past 7 or 8 years. If it's not working, he'll go back to it. That's the cool thing about Saban. Look, you got to give it to him. Yep. He is the GOAT, but he is an adaptable GOAT. Yep. And you saw that. So let's say look, personnel is going to dictate, right? So if he swivels back to the Alabama days of old of great defenses and the Mark Ingrams of the world, or the Yeldons, or those types of running backs. And if it's working, great, he's going to stay with it. If he's not, he's adaptable. I mean, I think that's what he's taught us in the last 8 years.
Well said.
John Hartwell.
Speaking of tempo and style of play, Dave, I've got to bring it back to our game here in Monroe tonight between the Warhawks and Army. Coach Monken, as our guys have been preparing for this game, Army's a traditional triple option, and they've gone away from some of that. What do you see from an offensive standpoint tonight?
Yeah, they you know this better than me. They eliminated the chop block 2 years ago, and that basically it took the legs out from the option offense from the service academies. Navy didn't do a good job of it last Saturday against Notre Dame, but you saw a little bit of the future for service academy football. We just can't run we can't zone block and try to run our option. We just don't have the size or the speed. Our offensive line, and the defenses were last year against Army were putting 9 and 10 people on the line of scrimmage, so we just couldn't compete. So we're going to try something new with this spread. It's still going to be probably 75% running. We have some really, really good receivers. Isaiah Austin, I think, will play on Sunday starting next year. I think it's just going to the big question, how well have we assimilated the offense, just learning it on the fly, and, can our quarterback actually throw the ball? Because that's always been a challenge for the Black Knights. So we're going to, I'm very interested in the game tonight. I can't wait for it. And we got a tough schedule this year. And so I'd love to see the offense transcend, and it would underscore my belief that, the most underrated coach in America is Jeff Monken.
Yeah, I'd like to see that transcending come next week, not this week. Hey,
Rob,
I got to throw out two two kind of storylines as we begin the season, one on the field, one off the field, that I'll be interested to see how these two play out here in the next few weeks. One, going back to yesterday's news, the Cal faculty has always, it's no secret, they have been at total odds with the athletic side of campus. How this move to the Atlantic Coast Conference sits with the Cal faculty, because I promise you they're not going to sit back and not have an opinion on this. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. And when you talk about relationships, that relationship between the faculty and athletic, the other one I can't wait to see is how the Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Petrino relationship.
I love the echo here, I guess.
Somebody's got an echo on there. Really, I'm not sure what's happening. We got an echo coming in, and not quite sure what that is. I guess
there we are. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's funny to compare the Cal faculty, and then you have the Stanford faculty, and who played a principal role in getting the deal done, but none other than Condoleezza Rice. She's a professor at Stanford, also at the Hoover Institute, and a huge sports fan. And so she wanted her Cardinal in the ACC, and she helped get it done.
John, what it's going to be like is Maud meets the Clampets. That's what's coming up.
Okay, here's the question. I think Doug's having some issues there at the lake, but the game's coming up. This opening weekend, we say right now there's no compelling games. Really, there was Utah, Florida. That already the drum beats on the death watch for Billy Napier. I mean, people don't give you very long. Florida hopefully will turn it around for their sake. But LSU, Florida State.
Tomorrow night.
The winner of that game, how much are they in control of for the rest of the year? Because it's a non-conference game for each school. So if they lose it and they win out in their conference, they're still going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it was like last year, Rob, with us. We lost to Florida State, but yet we still controlled our destiny to possibly get into the playoffs. With that last you lost to Texas A&M. If we don't lose that, we go on and beat Georgia, we're in the playoffs. So you're to your point, an early non-conference loss doesn't hurt you. But the winner of this, all the things that they've been building on since that first game in the Superdome last year are validated. That's what's important in this game tomorrow night. And it's going to be a great game. You watch. It'll be the best game of the weekend, in my opinion.
Doug,
favorite right now?
We're getting a little bit of an echo. I think it may be on Doug's end, but I'm going to try this again. Doug Dean, you look at this LSU Florida State game.
Yeah.
Getting an echo.
I'm going to sign off, Robin.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. We just have him reboot. But last year, you remember last year, gentlemen, when LSU lost that first game to Florida State. I mean, the attack dogs were just everywhere. Brian Kelly doesn't know what he's doing. He talks funny. LSU had no idea what they were doing. And then they were playing for the SEC championship. You make such an improvement from game one to game two. And I think people panic. And Florida fans right now aren't feeling good. But the real problem is you can't have two number threes on the field at the same time on a kick.
Floppy.
Yeah. I mean, how does that happen? And that's the kind of stuff that'll drive you crazy as a coach. And John, you know the numbers as an athletic director. And you go back and you look, there may be some, Washington versus Rutgers played in St. Louis or Omaha or Kansas City or Denver. I think that's going to happen a lot because I think the first time there's a weeknight game and they get stuck on the East Coast in January because of a snowstorm for 3 or 4 days, they can't get out. That's when they're going to regret making this decision.
Yeah, and you make a great point looking at the calendar dates. I don't think it's going to be such an issue in football. I think where it's going to become an issue are in the basketballs and the Olympic sports and things like that. With the travel on those, and like you said, basically that mid-December to mid-March time frame, and you get snowed in or you have mechanical problems. And the other thing is, you're going to see a real push to utilize a lot of this increased revenue for charters, even for, there's a lot of schools now that not only football, but men's and women's basketball and some other smaller sports charter. But I think you're going to see an even greater demand for chartering, for a lot of the Olympic teams too, to chew up, for lack of a better term, some of this newfound revenue.
Well, I know one thing, y'all will be putting travel coordinators on the staff, that's for sure, because it's going to be a logistic headache for all of your programs, the crisscrossing, and especially the spring programs. I mean, you're going to have baseball teams, volleyball, softball. I mean, John, it's going to be crazy. Them having to come West Coast to East Coast, the other teams having to crisscross back out. Again, we're thinking of it from a football prism, but the tentacles on this go far beyond that. And I don't think this thing was thought through. Frankly, I think Stanford and Cal going to the ACC is like Fonzie jumping the shark in 1979. I swear, to use a Doug Dean metaphor, that's what we have jumped the frickin' shark.
Archie Bunker declares Judaism or something.
Jeff, it's so regionally logical, though. You got to admit, regionally logical.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, well, and take COVID out of it, but like it makes you think, what's next? I mean, like what's happened in the last 3 years when you have the transfer portal, NIL, this massive overhaul of conferences, the end of the Pac-12, and then look at another sport, golf and LIV, and like what's going to happen? What's going to happen next in sports? I mean, it's just it's crazy, all the disruption that's occurred in just the last 3 years.
I mean, next thing, the Fed will be printing $10 trillion in paper. Oh wait, never mind. That was already.
Let's talk about a year from now. It's kind of like when someone tells you, no matter what, do not think about cold beer. Well, obviously, the only thing you can do is think about cold beer, and do not think about the 12-team playoff, because this year we're the same format. But what I propose, and I don't think they have the gumption to do it. You'll get Herb Street and all the talking heads will opine about it. But this year, as the season unfolds, I would love to see the selection committee issue a sort of fictitious, if we did have a 12-team playoff.
I love that.
Here, what it would look like, because that gives the public a year of a year with no harm done to sort of kick the tires, criticize, raise hell. And I'll give you a scenario that selfishly, and the scenario I'm going to give you is absolutely feasible. It has happened before, could happen next year. You've got Alabama and Georgia, or pick, if you don't like those guys, pick one, and they finish the regular season undefeated. I'd have to check. Does Alabama and Georgia may play next year, but you get my point. So they play in Atlanta. Somebody wins. Those two are both in the play. My curiosity with the politics of the selection committee, and I'd love to see that the tires kicked and that sort of model this year for fans to consider, is what if you have an LSU or Auburn in the West, whose only, in the case of Auburn, the only two losses are to number 1 ranked Georgia and maybe number 3 ranked Alabama. You leaving out a 2-loss Auburn team with those two quality losses, I think they're going to be tempted to, because of the regional politics of the committee.
I think you're right, but look back in 2017, Doug. Auburn lost to Clemson 14-6. Early in the season, Jarrett Stidham was sacked 11 times. And then one of the biggest meltdowns ever, they blew that lead on the road. But credit LSU for coming back in the great punt return. But at 10-2, in the final 3 weeks, they played number 1 Georgia and number 1 Alabama and beat both of them. They go into Atlanta ranked number 2 in the CFP rankings. Had Auburn won that game, they are an 11-2 team playing in the college football playoff.
Yeah,
right. We got to take a break. Let's take a quick break. And is this House Industries? Okay, we're going to be right back because I want to, Doug. We come back, we're going straight to you.
Okay.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Back here on this round table, Jonathan Winters with John Hartwell, AD, ULM at Monroe. Dave Tompkins in the Low Country in Bluffton, South Carolina. Doug Dean, Lake Martin, the Captain Stubing of the day. Frank Duffy, a 28-hour bus ride from Atlanta with 173 stops to Orlando. Ready for the big one tomorrow at LSU. Doug, you were on a roll before the break. Keep rolling.
Thank you. And back to your example is not a bad one, Rob. It shows that the committee might, under the right quality of schedule circumstances, degree of difficulty, that yes, they will vote for a 2-loss team potentially. I think one year Alabama had a shot to be that team. It just didn't work out. But in my example for next year, I think the real calculus may be if you have, let's say, the 2-loss LSU or Auburn team whose losses were Alabama and Georgia, who are only one's undefeated, one's got 1 loss, versus an undefeated team that's just outside the group of Power 3 or Power 4. Help me with an example, guys. But Cincinnati, yeah, great example. So what's the calculus going to be when they get down to the nut cutting of that example of a 2-loss high-quality SEC team versus a Cincinnati that's undefeated?
That's why I'd love to do your recommendation of a dry run this year, and just so everyone understands. I think coaches and athletic directors will want to understand. It'll impact their scheduling and how they play, because I really, being Army and ULM, I mean, we want some Davids in the playoffs. I mean, this is our opportunity to have a once in a lifetime year and get in the playoff. I want that to happen, once in my lifetime for Army. Yeah. But I think a dry run this year, we kind of understand. And if the committee comes back and says, sorry, little guys, unless you go undefeated and pull off a shocker, beat a Goliath in the regular season, you're not going to get in. And 2-loss teams in the Power 4 will. Hey, at least we know. It's an opportunity this year to kind of sort of set the stage.
Well, I think it makes
John Hartwell, Frank. Let's let John go. He's got to step off, and then we'll come back to you.
Rob, you can be the facilitator of this. Have a mano Doug Dean and Bill Hancock on there and float it out there. I think that'll be awesome.
John, any harm, and of course the scheduling is going to be greatly different. We don't have divisions next year, do we, in the SEC?
No.
Yeah.
John Hartwell, I know you've got to get going. You wanted to tag out here, but look, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Positive, Citadel, go Bulldogs, and y'all are playing Georgia Southern today. So,
yeah, the alma maters down in Statesboro today. So good luck to to the Bulldogs down there, and we're excited. As Dave and I have talked a little bit about our game here at 6 this evening on the NFL Network here in Monroe. So excited about that. Hey, I'm gonna leave you guys with one thing, and one other thing that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Maybe not so much this weekend because there's not very few conference matchups, but when you talk about fans, and I'll think back about a month ago, I was in Chicago and got to go to Guaranteed Rate Park to see the Cubs play at the White Sox. The game was secondary compared to the fans drawing back and forth in the stands. There were a few fisticuffs that broke out there. but
not on the south side. Oh, my goodness.
South side of Chicago.
South side, yes.
Oh, yeah. But just think about this. The lame duck status of these teams that are leaving conferences. And when those teams go on the road this year, you talk about playing in hostile environments. It may bring it to a whole nother level, but I can't wait to see how that plays off both on the field and in the stands.
Texas is going to get blistered. Texas is going to get blistered. Hey, John, good luck with the Warhawks tonight, brother. Tell my buddies, the Robertsons and Christian Creed up in Monroe, love them, man. Y'all have a good game tonight.
Hey, Frank, I'll do that. I told Rob. So our good friend Tim Brando, who called the Michigan State game last night.
Yeah,
he's flying back to Shreveport this morning and driving over for the game. So
fantastic.
Visiting with him.
Hey
guys,
great. My good buddy Scott Alexander is their producers, man. He's awesome. See you, buddy.
No, hey, great to be on with you guys. Have a great and safe Labor Day weekend, and take care.
We'll be pulling for you tonight. We'll be watching you back on our show Thursday, okay?
Hey, Rob, as John Eggers, I was thinking it would be, we're going to have game day at one of those hostile venues Hartwell was talking about. And can you imagine some of the signs with flip birds and you killed the Pac-12? It's going to be entertaining.
Look, man, I got to tell you, this round table with Doug and Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy, John Hartwell, this is awesome. Getting my voice back. I'm drinking this honey tea. My sinuses, the temperature dropped from 102 to 59, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. But I love what all of y'all are saying, and this is what's important. Dave, you graduated from West Point. That's not easy to do. It's not easy to say that you graduated from the Citadel, okay? And no matter where you graduated from, you're always sentimentally attached to that. And I think what we need, I love John is just fired up about his game at ULM as I am sitting up here at Biddy and Bo's Coffee in Auburn. My son and his friend Mary and her son, they just flew down from Nashville for the game. Everybody in this kid's family is from Tuscaloosa. They're all Bama people, but since he was 2 years old, he's loved the Auburn Tigers. It's just something crazy. You're from Mountain Brook. There goes Stedman Chile.
And all my best friends from Mountain Brook are Auburn graduates, and so I only pull against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. I have a love for Auburn. I love the campus, the town. I love playing at the Auburn Golf Club. Play there a lot. That nice picture of Jason Duffner when you walk in. It's just Auburn is just a wonderful, wonderful place. I wish I was there today with you, Rob. I love going there.
It is an incredible place. Frank, you're down there. We hadn't even gotten to the important stuff. What's on the menu, man? Food-wise, I mean, down there. Couscous, jambalaya, gumbo. Let's talk about it.
It's too freaking hot for that. I'm gonna make po' boys and I'm gonna make like a citrus salad, dude. I am not going traditional down here. I'm sitting out here. I'm sweating like I stole something. In fact, I'm looking around thinking they're coming after me for putting the flag at half staff in honor of Jimmy Buffett. Right? I'm sure I'm gonna get in trouble for that. But no, Rob, it's gonna be a fun time. There's a lot of LSU people are down here. It is as hot as the sun when the surface of the sun when the sun was out about an hour ago when I was sitting out here. It's brutal. So I think we're gonna have a lot of cold food on the tables and not our jambalaya and gumbo, brother.
Look, here's the thing. We talk about why we love college football, and it just all this talk about NIL and the portal and all this other stuff. Here we are, it's game day, and we talked about the portal briefly, but the games are all that matter. And I think there's a narrative out there that football is in trouble. Doug Dean, it's not.
No, it's not. And hey, Rob, Duff, my friend Duff, this was a really fun week for me, Duff, because I do business with a great company in Kansas City, Lockton, and for reasons that would take too long to explain, that a small entourage is coming from Kansas City for the Auburn LSU game, which will last for a little while. So I've secured hotel and everything else, and dinner plans for that big October 13th weekend. Look forward to hanging out with you.
Yes, sir. I can't wait.
I will not go there with high hopes, but funny things happen in that series. Weird things happen in that one. And as far as eating your heart out, Duff, somehow or another, the weather gods saw fit to bless Jordan Hare Stadium fans with a high of 82 today for that afternoon game. So
y'all are going to love it, man. It's going to be an awesome day for y'all.
Going to be blissful. Need to just take care of business and get Hugh off to a good start. Otherwise, it could be a long week.
Yeah.
Playing the worst team in college football.
Yeah, UMass, I watched them last week against New Mexico and State, whatever. But wanted to say something real quick, just let Oakley McFerrin, this is a kid, plays high school football up at MBA in Nashville. He and his mom and my son just flew down for the game. Since you were, 2 years old, Oakley, you have wanted to come to Auburn, and everybody in your family lives in Tuscaloosa. What's it like being a Rebel?
Ever since I was young, no explanations. I like to rebel against my dad and his whole family from Alabama, Tuscaloosa, born and raised. Been Auburn all the way.
Come on,
die by it. So
way to go! Oakley, we got to get you an official visit scheduled at Auburn.
I love it. Hey, now, and you do know what goes in between War and Eagle, right?
Yes, sir. War damn Eagle.
There you go.
Hey, Doug, I spent 6 years of my childhood in Overland Park, Kansas City, Kansas.
Home of the NCAA.
Home of the NCAA. The Chiefs won Super Bowl IV while I was there. They beat the Vikings 23-7.
Hey, who is my favorite Kansas City Chiefs player of all time? The greatest name of all time. Field goal kicker, Jan Stenerud.
That's right. And by the way, Dave, I was a young lad in New Orleans when that game was played at old Tulane Stadium
under a tornado watch.
And you know what? I can remember leading up to that Super Bowl, because that really, it was on the heels of Joe Namath and the Jets winning it for the AFL, but they still were not getting their credit. And when Kansas City rolled in, the Vikings were a heavy favorite. In fact, they were hanging out at Pat O'Brien's that entire week. They were there so much that they still have a drink on the Pat O'Brien's drink menu called the Purple People Eaters. Everybody thought that Minnesota was going to win that ball game. And let me tell you, the Chiefs were in town and they were quiet. And I'm telling you, I still think Lenny Dawson scrambling and tossing one, down the field. And I can still see Hank Stram with that toupee on. Come on, boys. Let's circulate down the field, boys. Come on, boys.
Hey,
Trap 360.
Hey, Dave,
the great touchdown from Dawson to Otis Taylor. Otis Taylor was my favorite.
Otis Taylor, yeah. High stepping down that sideline, a little out and go.
Yep. And probably the guy drinking the most at Pat O'Brien's that week was a Cal grad. Joe Cap was their quarterback.
That's right. Sure was. Most people think it was Fran Tarkenton, but it was Joe Cap. You're exactly right. And he was well known for being a cocktailer, a Cal guy. He was one of Burt Reynolds' good buddies, and they would go out on the town when they would come into town. He picked the wrong week to go out and have cocktails, and it showed.
Rob, we have now morphed into Savant Saturday.
Oh, it absolutely is. And Doug Dean, you're, again, great writing skills, and you communicate really well. The message to college football fans is, no matter what's going on, once we play the games, all that other stuff goes out the window, doesn't it?
Well, it should. I mean, there'll be instances where it looks to us like this new reality of portal and NIL affected actual play. I'll give you an example of that. I mean, it's not impossible that you see a player that looks like he's taking plays off, and maybe he's mad because he didn't get the 7-figure NIL that somebody. But how is that really materially different from a kid that was resentful that he didn't get dark money under the table to the same degree? And I wanted to compliment Dave because Dave, as I've gotten to know you, albeit with maybe one phone call and staring through a computer monitor, you are, if nothing else, Dave, you're pure class. And I really appreciate you saying that it sounds like a cliche, a sarcastic cliche. Some of my best friends are Auburn people. that is true. I will tell you, and this came to me later in life. I thought that the secret to life as an Auburn man was to only hang around Auburn people. And I won't lie, when football season comes around, I would rather that predominantly Auburn people. But I have, like, between Duffy and you, Dave, I look forward to lifting a glass with you, Dave, or playing a round of golf if you allow bogey golfers in your group, you know.
Well, thank you. But, in my opinion, there's still some fake Alabama fans. There's some Alabama fans that it's just an affiliation with the brand, and that goes back to Coach Bryant's days. But folks that are Auburn folks, they love Auburn. Yeah. I mean, they love Auburn, and it is a love that, it's tear-jerking to watch. I mean, just how much Auburn people just love their school and their teams, and it doesn't have to be football. It can be gymnastics. It's anything. It's just whenever the Tigers are playing, it's War Damn Eagle, and it's a pleasure to watch.
Hey, Dave, if we're having admission time, if I'm standing up and it's a 12-step program, hi, I'm Frank Duffy. I'm an LSU fan, and I've got Auburn friends as well. But let me tell you why I've got Auburn friends. It's very clear. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's why we have a common enemy, brother.
Hey, but put a finer point on it. If you have not lifted a nice bourbon or whatever your favorite is, or coffee with someone of the other team, and been able to, after a game, to have a civil and really fun discussion about what you saw in the game, it's delightful. That happens at my hunting club all the time because, the 10 guys I put together to hunt turkey and deer, 2/3 of them just happen to be good Bama guys, and they'll write the check to come down and hunt. But on the cover of Southern Living this week, if country artist Thomas Rhett and his wife, or maybe it's his fiance, Laura Akins, he's Georgia, she's Tennessee. If they can get along, to borrow, ironically, Rodney King's line, can't we all just get along?
Hey, wait a minute. LA motorist Rodney King. Just driving along, just minding his own business.
Right.
Hey, Doug. But Doug, your mama was no dummy. She didn't raise a fool. You always keep those Alabama guys and their shotguns in front of you, not behind you.
Yes, of course. Now, I will say, I bet Dave would agree with me on this. There is, if you're trying to venture out and diversify your friends to include other SEC rivals, then there is a culling process. You might attempt it once or twice and have to ghost somebody who doesn't know how to behave.
Right.
Well, we got to take a break here real quick. But hey, when we started this show, my title sponsor, when I worked at Duncan Williams, Duncan was a Phi Gamma at Alabama. And now another one of my sponsors, Alan Gates, in the 250 Club. So we're all, you know what? We appreciate the game. And that's what makes it so much fun. And you know what? You're right. Don't hunt together on the day of the Iron Bowl. We'll be right back with more.
Or get married or anything.
Yeah.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, we are back with the round table. Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy down in Orlando at the LSU Florida State game. Captain Doug Dean, Lake Martin out there on the veranda out there looking out over the lake. But it's a great time to be watching college football today. That's Mary in the background. She is Oakley's mom and just came down here from Nashville. She loves Auburn too. And but I think Dave and Frank and Doug, these rivalries wouldn't mean anything if the programs weren't so steeped and rich in tradition. That's the thing about it. And we think about all the games. I'm a radio guy. I love to listen to the games on the radio. And, we got Alabama.
Carl Stevens.
Yeah, Carl Stevens. Good God, unbelievable. You're so right, Shug. And Shug would always say, you're so right, Carl, on the South Central Bell Auburn Football Review. But I want to get into this thing with Dave. You look Alabama tonight. Well, Jalen Milroe's the starting quarterback. People are going crazy about Nick Saban and the depth chart. Your starting quarterback doesn't mean he's guaranteed to start every game. But you got to borrow the line that Roman Harper uses on this show. In Nick, we trust. Remember his first year there with John Parker Wilson. And remember the second year with John Parker Wilson. I mean, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting John Parker at Country Club of Birmingham last summer. And, of course, he very graciously asked the question that he's been asked probably 9,000 times, like, what was it like that first training camp? And he gave some good stories. But it really does underscore the will of the man that's Coach Saban. And he will figure it out, and he doesn't feel beholden to just divulge a depth chart right now. And maybe he knows what it is, maybe he doesn't, but he does not give a what Mr. Feinbaum or anyone else has to say about it. And he's going to coach his team, or in my program, he's going to coach his program and the way he wants to. And as a huge Alabama fan, I'm all for it. And I'll be watching that game tonight, along with the Army game, because I want to see what the quarterback situation is. I mean, that's everyone's saying that's our Achilles heel, but maybe it's not. And I think the loss of Will Robinson's real big, but apparently our defense is stronger than ever, and we got all the athletes, and so and most teams, we just need a game manager. So I'm confident that we'll have that. So we got a tough schedule, but I'm it's opening day, so I'm very, very bullish on things.
Look, I agree with you, and I think what's going on is that college football, like, look at all the games. Josh Heupel, we talked about him at Tennessee. Last year, Tennessee outscored their opponents 355 to 155 points in the first half. They do most of the damage. It's a blitzkrieg, hit them hard, hit them early. They got Virginia today at noon in Nashville. I think Tennessee takes care of business, Doug, in a heartbeat, gets the job done. I'm a big Josh Heupel fan. I mean, is he Bobby from King of the Hill grown up? I don't know. Doug, elaborate.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up Tennessee, and I'm going to after that I want to circle back to Duff and see if I can get him fired up about LSU's prospects against Florida State. I have a feeling I know what Duff's take will be, but Tennessee. I'm speaking as an SEC fan now, not some partisan guy, but the SEC needs Tennessee. Georgia may disagree with this. SEC needs Tennessee to be really good again.
Yeah.
SEC needs Florida to be really good again, but it looks like from the other night we might have to wait a year or two. I like how Napier's recruiting. Josh Heupel, he's putting in place. They're recruiting well, and if they start playing serious defense, and they may, there's no evidence to me to bet against Josh Heupel being able to select and then develop a quarterback to perform at a high level. So I'm kind of upbeat about Tennessee's prospects this year, as in max of 2 or 3 losses. But remember, a year ago, they were number 1 in the nation total offense. So, I mean, you're going to have a drop off, but can they play defense well enough that a slight drop off doesn't really matter?
Yeah, you're right. We need the counterbalance against Georgia is what we need. Either it's got to be Florida or it's got to be Tennessee. It's got to be one of those 2 teams. And we knew Florida was going to have challenges, and we saw it play out. Florida's got a hard time moving the ball. You can't move the ball in this league. You ain't going to win games. So it's going to probably fall on Tennessee to keep their momentum going. I think it's going to be tough for them because they lost a lot of talent. And, continuity and consistency is the name of the game. And then what do you do if you don't have the level of play like you had at Tennessee for those first few ball games? That's going to be interesting how Josh Heupel holds that together and how he when there's a little adversity that comes off of the great year that they had last year, that's what's going to be the determining factor of how Tennessee plays for the rest of this season. How do you handle adversity in those first couple of games?
One game I'm very interested in is tonight at 7:30 in Charlotte, and that's the Tar Heels and the Gamecocks.
Good game.
I think that's going to be a really interesting game, and I guess it's the last year for North Carolina's quarterback, and how good is he, and can Matt Browne still coach? What Gamecock team are we really going to see? Are we going to see the team that at times looked invincible last year and then could lay an egg? So
their last two games, they played with a passion. I don't think I've ever seen a 2-game stretch by any team how well they played.
Yep.
And with such purpose they played with. I mean, it was incredible. Beamer had them playing just incredible ball both those games.
Hey, Duff, I know how soft-spoken and shy and reserved you are, Duff. So I want to see if I can bring you out of your shell just a little bit for our viewers' pleasure. I would say chalk, as most people like LSU in a close one. Is that a Sunday game, I think?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yeah. So I don't understand that. I don't mean any disrespect to the Seminoles. I think Norvell is bringing them along impressively, and he's kind of pissing me off the way he's become a problem for Auburn in recruiting, competing for these players. But I don't see. I don't know what the analysts that are picking Florida State straight up. I'm puzzled by that. I guess you have to try to take a chance on some of these picks, and if you hit it, you look like a genius. But I just think LSU is going to make the next step. Brian Kelly is that good. Jaden Daniels, arguably one of only 2 or 3 returning SEC quarterbacks that are proven. And you could say Will Rogers, I like it, but State doesn't have the horses for that to really matter in the end. But convince me why LSU won't win double digits tomorrow night, Duff.
Yeah, I can. I like us. I like us big. I will tell you, I have not had more excitement and anticipation for a season with what might happen than going back to 2003 when we won the national championship with Coach Saban. There was a lot of excitement and expectations that year. This is the next time. We didn't have it in 2019. We really didn't have it in 2011. We didn't have it in 2007. National championship game years. But there is high expectations this year. And, you got to think, Coach Norvell, he would have been in a different position had we gone down and hit that extra point and maybe won that game last year in overtime. They would have been howling for his scalp after having that big lead. So there's a lot on the line for Florida State in this game. But I think the trajectory of both these teams, I think you will see tomorrow, as of the last year's opener and this year's opener, I think you're going to see a different trajectory. And I feel very good about our chances tomorrow, as I do for the whole year. I really do.
Yeah, and Duff, if you may remember, and Dave will appreciate this, because Alabama was the beneficiary of it, believe 2017, losing to Auburn, coming back to have that 2nd and 23 in overtime that Tua hit big. Only an Auburn fan would have to endure that. But
yeah, hence the Van Helsing comment from earlier.
Right. Here's the formula. You may not like it, because I know that your feelings toward the GOAT, Coach Saban, but I think a winning formula, a risk mitigating formula for LSU is to lose a close one in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Not that you go try to do that, but
Right.
if you're going to Tuscaloosa, good luck. They don't lose much. But
it's an easier route.
That's your only loss, and you make it into the 4-team playoff without having to play in Atlanta.
Correct. No, you're right. You're right. That was the 2011 Alabama in essence scenario. The exact same thing.
Dave.
Yes. I got a take here. So think how many national championships LSU basketball would have won in the 70s and 80s if Bobby Knight had been the head coach and not Dale Browne. I mean, with all those great athletes, Dwayne Scales, Rudy Macklin, Ethan Martin. I mean, they just had so much talent. That's been LSU football through the decades as well. And now that they've got Brian Kelly, who's young, and as long as he's committed to staying there, I think it's going to be the sort of the what if that LSU basketball could have been back in the day if they'd had a really good game coach.
Now, and here's the interesting thing about that. You're saying that with 3 national championships in that period. So
Right.
You're right. You're right. I mean, our pedigree, but I have said this. In fact, I told that to Rob and Doug right when we hired Brian Kelly, which was out of the blue. I wasn't expecting. I thought it was Kiffin. He will be the first multiple national championship winning football coach at LSU. You watch.
Yeah,
he has it all set up.
And I mean, nothing spoke louder than the fact that he left Notre Dame and went to LSU. Nothing, no more of an endorsement as possible. You leave freaking Notre Dame to go somewhere. I mean, that's unheard of.
You'll love this analogy, Dave. It's like getting off of a horse you just won a graded stakes on to get on another horse because the way you've worked him out in the mornings, you know what he's got.
It's like when Calvin Burrell got off the mount of Mind That Bird, and then in the Preakness took the mount of Rachel Alexandra, the filly, and she won the Preakness over Mind That Bird.
Case for you with reality and coaching comparisons. I'm pretty sure if Lester Miles and Ed O can win a national championship at LSU, then Brian Kelly can win more than one.
Yeah.
Like we've said on numerous occasions, there's an adult in the room, and that was not the case prior to that. You're exactly right. That's, by the way, that speaks to LSU's recruiting ability and the fertile talent of our high school ranks. That's what really that speaks to.
All right, let's switch gears. Let's go to Charlotte, South Carolina, North Carolina, border war. Okay, I think this is the last game in this series. At the end of last year, Spencer Rattler, who really hadn't done much the first 8 games, came to life.
Went off.
And the carnage and just the mauling of Tennessee, 63-38. They scored on every possession a touchdown, except for one when they just ran out of time in the first half.
Amazing.
So
and Clemson.
And then they beat Clemson for the first time at home in Clemson since 2016. Let's get going, Doug. South Carolina or North Carolina? Drake May's a hell of a quarterback, and Gene Chizik is coaching that defense, but I don't know what that means anymore in today's world. He's a hell of a coach, though.
You got at North Carolina.
In Charlotte. Yeah.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Most of the proverbial experts and analysts that I hear lean toward North Carolina. I'm going to show my SEC partisanship, and I think because Shane Beamer had, they're up and down, and you don't know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates, but if with a Forrest Gump. But I think that Beamer is going to be around for a long time in South Carolina. He seems to be real popular with their fan base, and I really like Spencer Rattler. I think Rattler takes another step. I'm going to take South Carolina in a down-to-the-wire game in that one.
I'm going to speak very softly because my better half's a North Carolina grad. But actually, Charlotte is closer to Columbia than it is to Chapel Hill.
Yeah. You're right.
A lot closer. I'm going to take South Carolina. I don't tell anybody though.
I got you.
Well,
Now,
I'm a Riverside. I'm going North Carolina. I think this winds up being Mac Browne's swan song, and I think he starts off with a W.
Okay. Well,
all right, let's switch gears. Here's
couldn't
another.
have a nicer guy.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, everybody I know that knows Mac Browne loves him. Let's look at another team.
Smiling Mac.
I want to ask y'all about Arkansas. I mean, Jaden Daniels, dual threat quarterback. He's gained about 12 pounds, highly effective. Look at KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. But his problem is he's bigger than most linebackers he goes up against, and that means he runs the ball a lot. He gets hurt a lot. How good can Arkansas be if KJ is disciplined enough to not put himself out there and get hurt and instead take the slide? I'll start with you, Levon Helm in the bottom corner at Lake Martin, the band.
I need to repeat that question, Rob.
How good can Arkansas be if KJ Jefferson slides instead of trying to run over people like he's done in the previous years?
Well,
he's a stud.
I was late to the party, respecting and liking Sam Pittman when they hired him. I thought it was kind of like last man standing. They didn't have a splash hire, but you know what? Splash hire is not always great hire, and we live in an age in which it seems like some athletic directors or power brokers that get hires done are more concerned with their ego winning the opening presser than they are long-term results. So I'm a Sam Pittman fan and cheering Hogs on. I love that fan base. Hideki, Sir Oinks a lot. They're just a playful, lovable fan base with their message board names. I love them.
My boy Dudley.
One week Auburn plays them. I want to keep track. That's football. So I hope that Arkansas has a big year. It would be fun to see. To be honest with you, and I'm going to probably rile your Aggie fans, I would rather see Arkansas challenging Alabama and LSU this year. I don't think Auburn's ready to do it. Yeah, it'd be nice if they surprise us, but I'm more interesting and if Arkansas were to knock off either LSU or Alabama and just really shake up the West. Not a Jimbo fan. A lot of people are high on him because it appears he's going to take the step to act like a CEO, but he's going to have to prove that. I'm from Missouri on Jimbo.
There you go. Show me.
Doug, hold those.
Game before I believe that he won't take the play calling back.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back for the final segment. Saturday's Roundtable Sidelines from Biddy and Bose on Gay Street in Auburn. It's game day.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you for the final segment. Look at Doug. Dave, that's Lake Martin. He's just sitting out there on the deck. Frank Duffy, Bengal 1, look at it right there. 3 big flat screen TVs. Dave, you're in the office today. It's a great day. Let's talk about another one. Ole Miss.
Real quick on Sam Pittman. I just have this feeling that he's a program builder. I just have this feeling that, it's no fanfare, big signature win early, but he's just going to gradually build that program, and he's going to come up and surprise an LSU or an Alabama sometime soon. I have that feeling.
And the interesting thing about it is with Arkansas, they hate Texas, and that's all you need to do is put Texas on that schedule. And it's going to be so much fun for the Arkansas fan base because no longer are they out there on the Western Front by themselves. They've got Oklahoma coming in and Texas, which is one of the most intense rivalries in all of college football. Doug Dean. Doug, unmute yourself. Yeah.
I apologize, Dave. I wanted to ask you a question because you have a marketing background. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
You're perfect to answer this. I want you to you get to be Auburn's athletic director for a minute. Auburn is now a free agent in the market of sports apparel, having been an Under Armour client for a long time. There's been good and bad with that. It seems like it's cost us some recruits not being Nike or Adidas, especially in basketball. But if you're Auburn, what's the landscape from a branding and apparel standpoint as Auburn considers that decision, Dave?
And they're considering going with Under Armour?
We are Under Armour. It's up for renewal. We're free to negotiate now. And like Notre Dame, you stay with Under Armour or have an amicable divorce and go some other direction. What would you do?
Wow, great question. Way back at Churchill Downs, we switched courses midway through my stint, and it worked out. It's a big gamble. The conservative side of me says just stay with Under Armour. I mean, they're a great brand. They understand sports. What's his name? Kevin, the CEO. Plank. Yep. Kevin Plank. Just entrench yourselves in. What I would do is I would have a meeting with Kevin. And of course have Hugh Freeze there, but also have Bruce Pearl there and have the gymnastics coach there. Just show them and have it at Auburn and show them everything Auburn and that entire experience there and the town and everything and just say, Kevin, we want you personally to go all in on Auburn because this is a really, really special place. It's different. It's unique from Alabama. Yeah. It's not, it's just, we're different. We're not competing with Alabama. We're trying to, we want you to understand Auburn. And
two unique brands that stand on their own. Two unique brands that stand on their own. And by the way, Dave, I've got to tell you, thank you for that Woodford Reserve marketing coup y'all did. I just want to let you know I've enjoyed my bourbon up there at the Kentucky Derby all these years. I love me some Woodford Reserve. That was a great coup as well.
So Dave, the point I think you're making is strategically, because Auburn, we should not try to out Alabama, the great Crimson Tide. We should differentiate and
do your own thing. Y'all always have.
Under Armour is the rogue off the beaten path and yet still a powerful brand. But we need them to make better shoes, right?
Right. And I mean, just
they're horrible.
Jordan Spieth doesn't have to be anything other than what he is, and Under Armour fundamentally understands that. He doesn't have to be JT or certainly not Tiger. He's Jordan Spieth, and his relationship with his caddy and the way he chats all the time. He's to the golfing world, he's an icon just because of the kind of guy that he is. And Auburn's that way too. Auburn is Auburn. And just don't Kevin, don't compare us with Alabama. We're different. Yep. Hell, in many ways we're better. And just love Auburn.
But of course, during the renew, you've got the nuts to get them to do what you want them to do. They
guys,
don't want to lose that brand either.
I got to step out for a second. I'm going to put Oakley on here to get his thoughts from a high school senior that plays football. Under Armour, Adidas, Nike. How big a deal that is. So y'all, here comes
you better
Oakley.
say Tiger Air.
Hey, air-conditioned helmets.
Yeah, talk to us, Oakley. What do kids, high school and college kids, what drives them about the different brands, Nike, Under Armour? What do they think about?
I mean, I definitely think it matters in terms of recruits. I think Under Armour is definitely like Jordan and Nike. I think that definitely helps with recruits, like whether it's branding, like how I think they definitely care how cool. Like Nike's obviously above Under Armour in terms of the gear they make, so I think that definitely has a huge impact on recruits.
Interesting. It's weird for me to think about that a kid's tiebreaker to choose between colleges is the apparel company, Dave. Isn't that weird?
That that was totally foreign to us when we were growing up. But is that the case? Is it where you're going to go play? Is it in college? Is it up to is it a Nike school? Is it Under Armour school? Is it really that important?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think even if it comes down to like cleats and gloves, like for me at least, like I can't wear Under Armour cleats. They just don't feel right, and I think that's a consensus. I don't think a lot of people like Under Armour cleats or gloves.
Well, that's a big deal. That goes to your playing, your comfort and performance on the field, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, how cool is it to be on a Friday afternoon walking around school before a game with that jersey on?
Yeah, we don't wear our jerseys. We dress in a coat and tie.
Hey, good guys. Good guys. Hey, let me tell you, you enjoy this time. It is one of the greatest times of your life, young man, and you extract as much juice out of that orange as you can and live it to the fullest, man. That is so awesome. So,
Yes,
and look,
sir.
it's not lost on us old timers the amount of work that it goes into being a high school athlete.
Yes,
you put in the time and the work, and it pays off, and that's a great life lesson, young man.
Yes, sir. For sure.
Hey, Oakley, it's Oakley, right?
Yes, sir.
When after the show, if you will give your email address, if you want to Rob, I produce a kind of an underground newsletter. It's Auburn fan exclusive. It goes to about 20,000 plus Auburn people who are evidently bored enough to want to read the distro list, Oakley.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Oakley, I got one last question, too, for you. Who's your favorite Auburn Tiger? And you can't say Cam Newton. You got to pick somebody else.
Yes, sir. All time, this is going to be underground. Seth Williams is he's a dog.
Wow.
Good call. Good call.
What's your favorite Auburn moment of your life? I mean, other than kick six.
Yes, sir. I was actually at the prayer on Jordan Hare, third row, so I got to give it to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, and speaking of which, I assume you mean that immaculate deflection to Ricardo Lewis. Hey, Duff and Dave Oakley, how unlucky can you get to be Ricardo Lewis, in which you haven't played the most iconic play in 20 years in Jordan Hare, and you only get it to enjoy it for 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
I know.
Crazy.
I remember exactly where I was when that play happened. Of course, I remember exactly where I was when pick six happened. I remember back in 1972 exactly where I was with the 2 block punts. I've been on the bad side of a lot of Auburn.
Punt, Bama,
To be fair to you, Dave, I remember where I was when Tiffin got a probable chance at a long field goal and cut my heart out as that ball sailed through the upright.
I was in Legion Field that game with Van Tiffin. Yep. The state of Alabama is crimson.
It's funny being an LSU guy back in the mid-'80s. It's kind of funny. We needed Auburn to beat Alabama one year for us to go to the Sugar Bowl, and it happened with Bo. And then we needed Lawyer Tillman's reverse to beat Alabama to beat Auburn for us to go that year. And both happened, both as underdogs. So just like in kick six, the entire state of Louisiana was riveted to those games.
So Oakley, is it Auburn? Are you a senior?
Yes, sir. Senior in high school.
Is it Auburn or bust next year in terms of where you're headed?
Yes, sir. I'm Auburn. I want to go to Auburn. That's my number one.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. And when people from Tuscaloosa go to Auburn, that's awesome. And I'm an Alabama fan, but good on you.
Yes, sir.
What position do you play?
Wide receiver.
Great, man. Keep working on the 40 speed. You can do it, brother.
Yes, sir.
Great job,
Hey, Dave, I was going to tell you, there's this meme nowadays on all the social media, and it goes something like, tell me it was a big football game without telling me it was a big football game. Well, that kick six, I'm standing down on the field. Yes, I did. I jumped the gate like most everybody. And about, it must have been 7:38 p.m. It's a 2:30 kick game. I start getting texts, not from my friends in the continental U.S., but from freaking Europe. I mean, people are texting me, a few people I know in England. Did that really just happen? That's when you know it was a historic game.
Yeah, no, it's that's what's great about college football, and that's what's great about the Iron Bowl. I mean, I think we have our respective fan bases have exported that whole tradition really well. CBS has certainly helped, and ESPN, but it is it's when you're a child of Alabama and you're born, you got to pick a side. And normally you pick the side of your family like I did, but then when you got some real cojones like Oakley, you pick the other side. That's very impressive.
Hey, and by the way, guys, that wasn't just Alabama and Auburn people. When that Iron Bowl went to Auburn to play on the Plains, that was like the Berlin Wall coming down, and we were 4 states away watching it. That was how big that was.
Yep. I mean, I have wonderful memories as a kid, going to Legion Field for the Iron Bowl. Went to them every year, but it was the right move to have them home and home, and it's I've been to a bunch of Auburn games at Auburn, but I've not been to an Iron Bowl at Auburn yet, and I want to do that one day. Yeah. The Iron Bowl should always be that way, and let me tell you something. People that say that Michigan-Ohio State is the greatest rivalry have never been to an Iron Bowl. And I've been to both. I've been to an Iron Bowl in Jordan-Hare, and I've been to the Horseshoe for Michigan-Ohio State. And you have a little bit better weather usually in either Tuscaloosa or Auburn than Columbus or Ann Arbor.
We had snow flurries as they were playing Hang On Sloopy up in Columbus. And I looked at my LSU buddy we were up there visiting a buddy of ours from Ohio State. And I looked at him and I said, what in the hell are we doing here on Thanksgiving weekend in it? I said, we're getting our car and we're going back down south. Man, I'm out of here. But you know what was cool? The Ohio State band on Friday afternoon came through all the bars on High Street. They basically did Script Ohio through the bars and back out of the bars. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. That was cool.
Hey, leading up to closer to the Auburn LSU game in Baton Rouge, October 13th weekend, I'm going to seek your culinary guidance. And in particular, though, please tell me I can still get a serious muffaletta sandwich right there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And by the way, Central Grocery, which is the long-time muffaletta maker, is still out of commission. They've been out 2 years because of Hurricane Ida. But let me tell you, we're going to go down to Napoleon House, right down the street from my apartment. Their muffalettas are actually better than Central Grocery. They've kind of sold out a little bit. I'll get you a muffaletta, brother.
Let's go.
I'm getting hungry listening to this conversation.
I love the Central Grocery muffalettas, but I don't like the post muffaletta burps you get.
Oh, dude. Hey, look, and the worst part is the next day you got to drink about a gallon of water just to kind of, salinize that salt in you.
I'm blessed with an iron stomach, fortunately, for my tailgating.
Yeah, tailgating.
Hey, Doug, don't eat anything for a week, brother, when y'all come in that weekend. We're going to take care of you.
I won't. It's going to be fantastic. And Duffy, I can promise you one thing: if I can't pick a winner, although bet on LSU as we sit, but I can promise you something freaking weird will happen.
Yes, sir.
The LSU game.
in the last of the year and year one with the new schedule coming, I think we might have saved something crazy for last. There ain't no doubt.
I do too.
I hope LSU just absolutely blows out Florida State tomorrow night, and I hope with all the stuff going on in Big Ten and ACC and we just focus on the SEC this last year of normalcy, and I have good vibes that's going to happen. This is going to be an incredible year for the SEC, I believe.
The only normal people in the world are people you don't know very well. I mean, we're all crazy. All right. Unfortunately, we're about out of time. Oakley, I just wanted to get his perspective, on that Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, whatever. Hey, make some shoes, Under Armour, that don't fall off and get stuck in the turf. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Really great show today, man. It's been so much fun. We'll be back on with you this week during the regular week, ready for more college football discussion. We gave Buddy the day off today. Let him recover. The Gators, I imagine he's probably going to want to go there and coach some. But everybody, the funnest thing about it is the games are here, and all the talking season is over. But, I mean, this is the part that I love the most is getting to be at the games. And, again, I don't really care who's playing. It's football. That is the number one key. Incredible discussion today. Dave Tompkins, Doug Dean, Frank Duffy from Biddy and Bo's Coffee in downtown Auburn, next to Auburn Bank on Gay Street in Magnolia. I tell you what, I think the one thing I'm looking for, you're right, Dave, normalcy, forget about it. It's, we've got these, we're going to have 4 super conferences, just like Jackie Sherrill predicted. And I think that's where we are, but we better remember this. If it doesn't work out, there can be more realignment. I won't be surprised if after these road trips across the country, the student athletes don't boycott and say, we're walking.
Yep.
Every bit of this stuff is fluid.
Watch it, Fonzie. That looks like a hammerhead. Watch it.
Yeah. This is the crazy part about it. But look, live from Biddy and Bo's Coffee, downtown Auburn. Come in here, get some coffee. They got great food, shirts, great place to be at. Go watch your games today. Be back on with us this week. Thanks to all of our sponsors, all of our listeners. Go out and make something great happen today. We are out of here. Yeah, Doug.
Real quick, just Jimmy Buffett, rest in peace. The guy taught basically through his songs, taught me to play guitar and sing. And gosh, what a persona Jimmy Buffett was.
Well, he'll always be on starboard rail looking back.
We'll
feel him today.
Yep.
All right.
Spanning the view of the captain and crew like a man just released from indenture. As a dreamer of dreams in a trap.
Goodbye, Jimmy Buffett. We'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Right.
We are, as they say, out of here.